We are honored to introduce Heidi Cruz as our closing keynote speaker. We were eager to invite Heidi, another esteemed HBS alum, to speak to us today as she brings a diverse perspective on empowerment through her extensive experience in both the private and public sectors, as well as through her philanthropic work. With a spouse in the spotlight and 2 young children, Heidi also knows a thing or two about the challenges surrounding balancing professional and personal commitments. Heidi is a managing director in the private wealth management business of Goldman Sachs, and she certainly took the path less traveled to get there. After finishing HBS, Heidi had an offer to work at Goldman, but she ended up instead taking a position as an economic policy advisor on former President Bush's 2000 campaign. Her subsequent work in the Bush administration led Heidi to a seat in the Situation Room on Condoleezza Rice's National Security Council. Heidi was responsible for U.S. economic policy toward Latin America and assisted in formulating and implementing U.S. trade policy worldwide. Returning to the private sector in 2005, Heidi remained committed to helping others through her role at Goldman, helping families achieve a broad range of financial goals, and through serving on the board of charitable organizations, including Living Water International. We are so excited to hear Heidi's insights on empowerment through serving others. So please join me in welcoming Heidi Cruz.
Good afternoon. I am really delighted to be with you today. I've thought quite a bit about what I would say, and the word empowerment is a powerful word, and it's an easy word to think about, some things to write about. It's an important concept to living a very, very full life. But before I begin, I want to assure you that I'm genuinely happy to be in Boston here at the end of February. You have brought Texas-style weather, and I appreciate that. I was born in California, and as many of you know, have moved to Texas. And there aren't that many California-born and raised people who moved to Texas who love the Northeast. But I'm one of them. I loved being at Harvard. I came in 1995 and took my first job in New York City and was back here for about 13 years and truly loved the East Coast. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back. And if anyone is trying to think where they maybe should move after business school, I can assure you that I can offer you many, many 65-degree days in February and a couple 85-degree days at Christmas. I thought about the idea of empowerment, what it's meant to me and what I think it might or could mean to you, and I wondered if those definitions are the same thing. But I know this much. You've heard a lot about the word today. You've heard it from different perspectives, from CEOs, from entrepreneurs, from people who have served in the public and private sector. And one thing that I've discovered is I don't think empowerment is about finding perfect balance. I'm not going to give you one of those rah-rah speeches about how you can or I can do it all. The corporate executive job, the degree from HBS, the political wife thing that I have to remember frequently as part of my job, and the most important role of being a mom. Because I'll be honest, I don't think I've achieved balance. I'm not sure, actually, that many people have, and I think, I was thinking about this in writing the speech for you today, that I think there's something inherently human that is imbalanced. Aren't we all a little bit imbalanced? And when you look at successful people, they often put themselves off balance. They strive, they extend themselves. They sometimes do things for long periods of time. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Hidden Figures about the women at NASA who made the last calculations to put humans on the moon, but those calculations weren't done at noon. Success is often pretty imbalanced. But what I'd like to focus on today instead is how we can all be empowered in our lives. After all, you've chosen this as the title to your conference, Women Empowered, and I love that. I'm going to talk about what it means to have that total focus and joy, to feel at some points in your life really complete, like you're on the way to mastering what you've set out to achieve. And it's not always going to be exactly the way you thought it would be. Some things about your life probably already have or may be much, much more interesting than you thought. And some things might be tougher. But when you know that you are on the path that you want to be on, that's empowerment. So what is this word? I don't know if you want to run a Fortune 500 company, a Fortune 100 company, start a not-for-profit, build a career at Goldman Sachs, lead a university like this one, or maybe have an amazing, beautiful art studio. But what I know and you know intuitively is that being empowered is going to be essential to getting there. to reaching your professional and personal goals, and in short, to making an impact. I've worked for some very talented people. I've moved to a state, a very big state, where I knew no one, built a business, and helped my spouse run for President of the United States. But I'm still discovering new paths toward empowerment, how to use it and how to live it. So I'd like to share with you today, in closing this incredible conference that you've had, just 5 core insights, things that I'd love for you to have with you on your journey about our word, empowerment. And the first is strength. Empowerment comes from strength, from feeling strong. Now, this may sound a little mundane, but hang in there. Over the course of the next 20 minutes, we'll get deeper. I ask myself, how do we feel strong? For me, it's been pivotal to have a healthy body, mind, and spirit. And don't worry, I'm not going to take you into my exercise regime or what I do to feel strong. Instead, I want to tell you about someone who I've worked for that was strong, that was perceived as being strong. Because I think it might surprise you what made her strong, and I'll tell you why it mattered. I did work for Condi Rice at the National Security Council. She was a great boss. People view Condi as strong, as extraordinary. And I agree. But what I love about her is what she did to be strong and what it takes, because you all have it. She was talented and has a very, very sharp mind in her profession. But what made her outstanding is that she did ordinary things that we all do every day, extraordinarily well for decades. She came and left the West Wing every day, early, went home late, but at the same time every day. No matter what was going on around the world, she kept her temperament even, always. She did a little bit of daily exercise, always. She was fair to everyone, and she did not have her own agenda. As some of you may know, she even practiced piano once a week while she was National Security Advisor. What got her to her position of power in the White House was that the president trusted her, and he trusted her because she was reliable and consistent, and in short, she delivered. She delivered for his agenda and for the country, not for herself. She kept herself feeling good, and I could see that up front, and that made her better at delivering than anyone else. Her commitment and ability to be in control of herself in every situation empowered her to do big things. They call that being gracious. That's what strong looks like. I've always tried to follow Condi's example. For me, it starts with using my time extremely carefully, optimizing, really, for what works for me and my levels of energy, being willing to break some unconventional rules in the process. So I've learned about myself that I do my clearest thinking in the morning, and so I try to get up really early and do a couple hours before going to the office. Days are busy, filled with client meetings, prospective client meetings, working with our teams, and a lot of travel, and often in the evening, some events for the firm. We do have 2 little girls, and when I'm not traveling, I reserve happily the best time of my day, a couple hours for them each night that I'm home. And they are 6 and 8, and a couple days ago, I was reviewing my remarks, and my 8-year-old likes to stay up late at night. And so when I came to this part, she said, "Mom, be sure you tell them our names." So they're Caroline and Catherine. She had a couple words of advice for me in this speech. But I do love to tuck them in late at night. And after that, I hit the gym, because part of being strong for me is feeling good. And I know you all are probably a decade or so younger than I am, decade or 2, and that may be normal for you, but to be in the gym at 10 every night is a little unusual when you're in your mid-40s, but that's what helps me feel strong, and that's how I get to maximize the energy in my day. It also allows me to unwind. So what I would encourage you to do on this first point of strength is find your strength. Think about what makes you feel good, because it matters. And so many times through life, people stop focusing on feeling good, and they let that go by the wayside, but it's empowering, and you'll need this to be gracious for life's challenges. Your first day at a new job, or maybe when you've had a job for a while and the floor drops out from under you with a huge challenge. Or if you've been in investment banking, maybe going home for the 3rd or 4th night at 3 a.m. when your model doesn't work. And hopefully those of you who came to business school like I did have left that part behind you, some of those latest nights after business school. Having that inner strength is what's going to allow you to deal with whatever life hands to you. And you're going to have a lot bigger challenges than these that I've mentioned in the days and years ahead. The second thing that I've learned is how important the word agility can be. Empowerment comes from being able to be effective in different situations. If you've only mastered the routine, if you've only mastered the ordinary, you won't be ready for change. You won't be on your toes. You won't be ready to grasp that next opportunity when it comes. Trust me, I know, because I've been through times when I've been ready, and I've been through times when I've been not so ready and didn't know it. When I was 27, right out of HBS, I did take a job on the George W. Bush policy team. A year later, when he won, I was in the White House, and after that worked for Condi at the National Security Council. But after President Bush's first term, my husband had been back in Texas for about 3 years. He was appointed to be Solicitor General of the state, and we commuted every weekend. Seemed fine to me. I was doing my dream job in the West Wing, and he had an amazing appointed position in Texas. But we'd only been married a few years and commuted most of them, and it was not ideal. But I wasn't ready to make the move. I thought we'd go back to Texas in 20 years, not 4. But I know that we needed to be together. We both knew that. And so at age 32, I dusted off my HBS offer from Goldman Sachs and re-interviewed, and I was fortunate to be hired. The change was stark, though. I went from meeting with foreign finance ministers and speaking internationally to literally driving the freeways of Texas looking for clients. Clients who didn't know me, clients who I had to build a relationship with. Clearly, I had a task in front of me. And I have to tell you, sometimes in these moments, you will draw upon your past experience. And in those times, and in thinking about what to say to you today, I realized I did have a skill of building relationships and selling. When my brother and I were 6 years old, he was 8, we started a little business, and it grew into about a 10-year, 200 to 300 a week loaf bread baking business. And my job was to sell, and his job was to count the money. So if you're ever in that position, reconsider your position, because you might be in some bit of a sales role for the rest of your life. But we had a red Yamaha 80 in a basket, and we sold about 300 loaves a week. So when I was driving the freeways of Texas in a car with a credit card, I thought, this isn't so bad. You should do this. But I learned an important lesson. I learned that I could be successful by applying the God-given talents that I had in different ways and in different places. And that if I was agile, I could achieve what I personally wanted to achieve, not for someone else or because I was asked to, but because it's what I wanted. I'd always wanted to have a career that spanned the public and private sector, and here is my opportunity. I learned that you are who you are by your ability to fulfill your potential. It doesn't depend on being in a specific city or state, or having a particular position of power or title. What matters is applying yourself toward your goals that you can do, and you can do that in more than one spot. The only thing that you take with you from place to place is yourself, your temperament, and your skills. And as many of you may know if you speak French, the French have a wonderful way of saying all this in a word, and that is comportement. The word in English, comportment. Be sure you've got that. You're going to need it, and you can always take it with you. It was hard at first, but I got the hang of things, and I brought in a number of clients to the firm. I learned that in the process of bringing in a client, you always have to have up your antenna. It's not formulaic. For instance, I found one of my first clients by driving the freeways of Texas and spotting a big company that was not covered. I found another on a product label. Those two illustrate the business that I'm in. You have to always be aware. You also have to know when to ask for help, and I think that's true in any profession. I figured out how to warm up relationships and how to find hooks for new business. And just after the birth of our second daughter, I was asked to head up our group. 1 year later, in 2012, Ted was elected to the U.S. Senate. And so by 2015, I'd been in Texas for about 10 years, and I felt like life was almost normal again. We weren't commuting. We had 2 kids. I was running our business as a co-head in the Southwest, and Ted was newly in the Senate and excited about that opportunity. So be careful who you choose to marry. That's another piece of advice I have. I didn't feel particularly comfortable, but I was just getting into my routine, and Ted came home from the U.S. Senate not so long after being elected and said that he wanted to talk about running for president of the United States. So I ignored him for a long time. For about 4 months, I ignored him. I truly was at a crossroads. And when around Christmas of 2014, his political team started staying in my living room till midnight, I realized that maybe I couldn't ignore them all much longer. So after much soul searching, and it was a lot of things that could be said about that soul searching, I ultimately decided to talk to Goldman Sachs about taking a leave of absence. I know I couldn't do that. I knew I couldn't take that leave of absence from my career for my spouse, but I could do it for our country. And when I came to terms that I had been asking myself the wrong question, and when I got my question right, I eagerly jumped in. All over again, I was going to have to be agile, but I didn't know it. Candidate spouse was very different than the job that I was used to. I was used to having control over my calendar. Gone. I was used to being able to choose who I wanted to meet. Gone. I was used to building a strategy and leading our teams to go achieve those goals, and when we needed to adjust things, I could help make those calls and help get them done, and if we were moving behind and needed to speed things up, I could help change things and make sure that we adjusted. Well, that was gone too. I started to struggle a little bit. And here's how I knew. It was 6 months before the primary started, and I just spent several days driving around to multiple states listening to my husband Ted's stump speech, which is very interesting the first time, less interesting the second. And on 7 times a day, you think you need to find a different job. My daughter pointed this out and asked me what I was now actually doing, and I had a hard time answering that question. The straw that broke me was sitting for hours in a holding room by myself. I'm used to doing things, and when you run a business, and like you all have been in businesses and you will run businesses, you are used to having things with you at all times to do. And I had left my bag with my iPad and iPhone, and I did carry a book, A History of Iran, with me, and I had accidentally left it all in the car, and there's no moving once you're back in the holding room. And so, of course, the speech was supposed to be a half an hour, but it wasn't. It was an hour and a half, and I was sitting there staring at the wall. And I thought, well, maybe I could do my sit-ups, my push-ups, a little bit of my CrossFit. I have to use this time. And I realized that, no, I was in a dress, and I would not be doing CrossFit in the holding room. So this was not so great. I did not feel empowered. And early the next morning, we rode in yet another black unmarked SUV to the airport, and I felt pretty ineffective. I thought, maybe I should go back to Goldman. We were going through the airport security line, and people were wanting a photo of Ted, and this one very nice lady leaned over and asked, would you please get in the photo? I want a picture of both of you. And I smiled nicely and looked down to realize that, yes, I was in my full Lululemon yoga gear, my favorite traveling outfit, my hair pulled back, and I had my jacket outfit on and my yoga pants. And there we were in a photo. We were running for president of the United States, and I was in my yoga suit. So something was wrong. I knew I'd have to be agile. I was going to have to make a change and empower myself, not by title or to-do list. I'd been waiting for someone to tell me what to do. Instead, I was going to have to empower myself to make this job what I wanted it to be, and to be able to look back, win or lose, and know that this was a year where I represented something that I could be proud of and that our supporters could be proud of. I had to embrace my role in the campaign, and that role was not about me. It was not about being comfortable. It was not about even being efficient. It was not about controlling my environment. It was going to be about giving to our team, to our supporters, and to this country. And when you give, you have to really up your game. Which brings me to my third point, how to create power that is within you. It's really up to you. It doesn't come from wealth or a degree. You're not born into it, and you don't luck into it. It only comes through what you do and how you think about yourself and how you choose to write your own life story. So now you know that there have been days and even months when I've struggled with this, but I've learned that if you are willing to continually extend yourself in every chapter and stick to what you set out to achieve, you can make it happen. One of my first and dearest clients came to this country with nothing. He was a chemist by trade. He started his life in the U.S. in a hair salon in Louisiana. And the owner of that salon today is his security detail. What he found early on was that he was really good at hair. But he dreamed in his garage late at night of making that business better. He rolled barrels of chemicals back and forth in his garage with his brother. And that product line became one of the premier color hair products in this country. Have you ever heard of BioSilk? Invented in the 80s. How many of you have a Qi flat iron? Raise of hands. Okay, there's a couple of Qi flat irons. That was the creation of this hairdresser who hired a NASA engineer to help him create his miracle flat iron in Houston, Texas. Unconventional. Thinking outside the box can go a long way. Creating your own future. And I met a woman last year during the campaign at a campaign stop in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's actually kind of comforting now. I travel a lot for Goldman Sachs, and I can be in almost any airport, regional or international, and I feel very at home. I've eaten in the places, I've probably slept in the chairs. I know the airports in this country very well. We had made a long trip to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and this woman really taught me something about empowerment that I wanted to share with you. She had made 10,000 phone calls for our campaign, and she asked me, very boldly, very comfortably, if Ted won this race, could her husband be considered to be ambassador to Hungary? She said she knew that most of these positions of ambassadorships went to donors and to people that were in business and had a lot of responsibility and power, but wasn't making 10,000 phone calls enough of an indication of loyalty? Have you ever made 10,000 phone calls for a cause that you believe in? This had more power with me than any pitch that I'd ever heard for a position. She was willing to be unconventional. She was willing to extend herself, to put in the work, and she was willing to make the ask. She was agile. She was empowered. It's not letting life just happen to you. It's taking charge. Believing that, yes, you can make a difference no matter who you are and no matter what you're doing. The chief founder and our campaign volunteer are a living embodiment of my fourth major point, which is purpose. Be empowered through having a purpose. Be intentional. Whatever it is that you do and choose to do it mindfully. Outline your dreams and go after them. And then don't forget to make the ask when you've done the work. Don't do things because others expect you to do it. Make sure that you want it. When the campaign was over, I came back. I came back to Goldman Sachs. And I had not gone through the ups and downs that typically hit people and families when they have run a hard race, put their lives on hold, and returned really to where they left off. And the reason is that when you do these things, because you all will do things differently in your lives to extend yourselves, you never really return to exactly where you left off. I've resumed my employment with Goldman Sachs, but now in a national role. And in making the choice to stay at Goldman versus do something else, I was quickly reminded of why I had chosen to be at this firm in the first place. You all have a lot of choices as to what you're going to do next and where you're going to go. But I want to tell you for a moment about what Goldman has done to empower women, because I know that everyone wants to work for an organization that has a mission, where the mission matters to you, and I think you're right to have that expectation. But you don't often think of an investment bank as the place to look. Even when I was in business school and graduated in 2000, everyone was starting a company. It was years before that when everyone wanted to go to an investment bank. But Goldman stands out, and it has continued to stand out through the decades because it's an organization which is truly committed to empowering its employees and stakeholders and elevating core values as an organization. That's certainly been my experience. Here's a great example. With our 10,000 Women initiative, which we started in 2008, we aim to provide women entrepreneurs around the world with business education and access to capital. There's so many women who have incredible skills in countries, third world countries, and they're expected to make a living for their family. By 2013, we'd educated more than 10,000 female entrepreneurs in 50 countries, as diverse as Liberia, Egypt, Brazil, India, and China. We started a global movement because we believe in the power and potential of women in the US, in the developing world, everywhere. In 2014, we started a new partnership with the World Bank, with the International Financial Corporation arm of the bank, the IFC, to scale from serving 10,000 women to 100,000 women. And with the IFC, we created the first ever global financial facility dedicated to empowering women entrepreneurs around the world. And so far, that facility has grown to over $600 million, helping women around the world thrive. Look to Japan for a living example of how women have been utilized in the workplace to make an incredible difference for the economy. Goldman's dedication to women in research helped make that a reality. Over the last several decades, Japan has experienced economic stagnation, a grain population, and lack of access to fresh talent. But the resource that could significantly turn that around had been underutilized. That resource was women. And we understood this at Goldman. which is why the firm supported the work of Kathy Matsui, the vice chairman of our firm and chief Japan strategist. If you don't know Kathy's name, you know her work. She's the one who coined the term womenomics. Womenomics challenges the idea that loosening immigration laws or raising the birth rate alone will right the serious problem of Japan's shrinking labor force. Instead, womenomics argues that Japan will benefit dramatically by closing the gender gap in the workforce and drawing on the skills of all its citizens, men and women alike. Since Kathy published her first work in 1999, Japan's Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, has made womenomics a critical plank of his plan to revive Japan's economic growth. Kathy would say there's still plenty of room to grow, but the female labor participation rate in Japan has grown from 57% to over 66%, even a higher rate than we have here in the US. Kathy's work inspires me. I hope it inspires you of things that you can do to make a difference. And that brings me to my final and most important point, which is I believe that empowerment ultimately comes from service. My mom's here today, and I want to recognize her. Mom, would you please stand? Where are you? Thank you for welcoming her. And she's brought with her my aunt and two of our dearest friends from growing up, so thank you for including us all in your conference. They're all incredible women, and I want to say a couple things about my mom in closing and our family. She's always come with me on life's journey. I lived in Europe, went to college away from home, and even coming up to HBS, and she has an incredible capacity for curiosity, real honesty, sometimes that's good and sometimes it's tough, and agility. If you call my mom, she always answers her phone. And I say this because you already are parents or you will be parents, perhaps. And having a family member who's always there for you, no matter what it is, my mom always has her phone. She might be at her spin class, weeding her garden, or skiing down a mountain, but from age 4 to 44, she always picks up. She's taken it all in, and I want to do the same for my daughters. I want to be there for them. It's different for me. I have to travel a lot, and I work for a big company, but I now have a place in my older daughter's bedroom where I can work after I tuck them in because they like knowing that I'm just there, that I'm nearby. And so I have an old desk, and I always take my work up there and stay in the room until they're fast asleep. A mom's constant presence is really valuable. It's meant a lot to me, and as women, no matter what role you take in your professional and personal lives, know how important those relationships are, whether they be your parents or a close friend or a sibling. Don't let them get away from you. Let me tell you just a little bit more before we close. My mom was a dental hygienist and my father a dentist. For months at a time every year, they would travel abroad and serve people around the world in their capacity as Christian missionaries. They took us to Kenya, to Nigeria, and many far-off places to bring people dental care. When we were abroad, my brother and I didn't go to American schools. We lived and learned with the people that we were there to serve, because that's what it means to be all in. It's not about being comfortable. It's not about being efficient. It's about being part of the story. And that's how my parents taught us to be. We came away from that with a real appreciation for everything that we have and the opportunity to be citizens of this country and the career opportunities that we've had. My parents taught us that by giving of ourselves to others, we could become more than we ever were as individuals on our own. My brother Scott's 2 years older, and he's an pediatric orthopedic surgeon. He lived in the Dominican Republic for 8 years and was one of the first doctors to fly into Haiti in 2010 when they had their tragic earthquake. Scott's one of the most empowered people that I know. When you see yourself in the service of others, you'll find yourself empowered in a way that's totally different than when you're working solely on your own behalf. You don't become empowered by being selfless. You become empowered by giving others power. And I know you've heard that many times in this conference. My hope is that you'll find moments where you feel empowered, that empowerment over time becomes not just a moment, but a way of life. Find your strength and build it. From a place of health, whatever it is that gives you that feeling of being strong. Be agile. Don't wait for others to empower you. Sometimes you're going to have to create it. Be intentional. Make the ask. Find empowerment by serving other people. Empowerment doesn't come from your bank account, your position, your spouse, or your birthright. It's going to come from within, and it comes from serving a higher purpose than yourself. You know this. You're a remarkable group of women, and this institution has empowered you greatly, and you'll always take that with you. I so look forward to hearing and reading about the impact that you all will make and the lives that you'll change for the better. I'm proud to have shared this time with you today, and thank you. I'd be delighted to take any questions.
If people with questions don't mind forming a line by both microphones, we'll be able to take a few.
Hi, Heidi. Thank you for coming. I'm also a really big fan. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the public and private partnership when you come from a role in the business world, actually going into the public sector. And then I have a more personal question. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to be my mentor.
Well, I'll answer the second one first, of course. I want to underscore with that kind question, you are an incredible group of women. And as you have traveled your own life so far, and you'll do many great things to come, whether it be in this country or other countries, you realize how fortunate you have been to be at this institution. When I came here in 1998, and I'd been on the East Coast for a bit, and I came to Harvard, I truly felt like I had arrived on the global stage. I hope that you felt that while you're here. This place really does empower you for a lot of very good fundamental reasons. Your question was a little bit about how a career in the public and private sector and how to combine those two things. And I think you so aptly entitled your weekend because, as I've said, and many others have as well, a lot of being empowered and achieving what you set out to is from believing that you can do it and taking that from within. And so I would encourage you that while there are trade-offs and while the timing may not always be exactly as you expect, and while the jobs that you might do in different places might be a little bit different than you anticipated, if you have a focus on what you want to do and what it is about that you enjoy, you will get there. And I would encourage you to seek out mentors in those companies, in those industries, in the public sector that can help you get there. Because none of us do this on our own. We achieve things because others have empowered us and have given us an opportunity.
Thank you
So
so
I
much.
hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, it does.
Should we go over here?
Thank you so much for being here. I'm an undergraduate. I'm a sophomore right now. And I was wondering, what would you tell your 20-year-old self to become more empowered and figure out your life? What advice would you give yourself, I guess?
If I were 20? That's a great question. I tried to express some of it in the speech, but probably this thing about being flexible. You know, so many times when people that do interesting things in life set out with a plan, and one of the reasons they do interesting things is because they set out on a mission and a plan. But we have to make sure that we're agile enough to take opportunities when they come. And if it doesn't fit exactly what you think it's going to be, does it have the qualities and characteristics of what you're looking for? And I knew when we were young and growing up, my parents took us back to Washington, D.C. and up here to Boston to see our country and some of the historical sites. And I knew that there was a lot of government service that inspired me. And so I looked for things that could help me get involved. In college, I was very involved in politics, helped run campaigns, and then took internships. And I think doing internships in a field of study that's interesting to you can really help you deepen your experience.
Thank you so much.
My question was this. I'm working on economic development on the reservations and bringing business opportunities because they're in a lot of poverty right now. And do you have any suggestions for business opportunities for the women on the reservations?
Sure. Business opportunities for working in development and
Yes.
helping finance women.
Yeah, yes.
When I was at HBS, and I know it continues, there are some enormous resources in the microfinance industry, and I know that industry has only grown and flourished since I was here. An organization that I knew quite well at the time was Women's World Banking, the Women's World Bank. And so I think some of those organizations are very global, some are even headquartered here in Cambridge, and reaching out to other people in that field is going to give you a wonderful network. And if there's any way that we can be helpful at Goldman Sachs, some of my colleagues developed this program where we used employee capital and firm capital to put a lot of millions and millions on the line to help women around the world see their potential. And so partnering with with people who have done it might be able to be helpful. And congratulations on
Okay.
that endeavor.
Thank you.
Oh, first of all, I just want to say that that was a really great speech. I really, respect your words of empowerment comes from within, and it's the way you feel. You're a very, very successful, driven woman, achieved great things. Quick question, what was the secret to your success?
Well, you far too highly esteem me. I don't know that I've achieved great things, but what I wanted to convey today is achieving a place of peace is so critical. And I know that there are periods where various of us, you will be in the spotlight, we've been in the spotlight, and there are other chapters that are just about building your muscles and being strong again to take the next opportunity. And what I would say is something that's given me great strength is my faith. It's my family. And there's always a place to go to that is way beyond my own experience and my own abilities where I get my strength from. And I think that's important because we can't control exactly what happens in our lives, but we can always be at our best so that we can fully serve others and fulfill that potential. And so that's been really, really key for me, is to have a couple things outside of just goals and success to truly rely on.
Well, thank you.
So you kind of just answered what I was going to ask you is, well, first and foremost, you were the person who I was most looking forward to seeing today, because the media made you be a completely different person. So I really applaud you for standing up there, and you are more than just the wife of someone who ran for president. So
Thank you. Thank you. That's kind of you to say. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I was going to ask you, how do you pick yourself up when you're being dragged through the mud? But I think you just pretty much answered that. So I do want to say you are a great role model, and just hearing you speak and giving the advice you've given at least has helped me. So thank you.
And what was your name?
Susie.
Susie. So Susie, let me answer your question too, because it's similar, and I really have relied on my faith and those in my life who have supported me and stayed with me. There are personal components to that, and there are professional components. And so it is multifaceted. Having a husband who's an incredible strength, confident in every situation, doesn't let the small stuff bother him, is really, really helpful. If you see him and he appears unflappable, he actually really is completely unflappable. Being at a firm that allowed me to take a leave of absence and to come back has been strengthening. Personally, the core of what strengthens me really is my faith. But I want to comment on what you said of when you're dragged through the mud and you can still stand up there and have a smile on your face. The words in my speech were very intentional because I asked myself, how did I fare in the campaign? And I think it's because it wasn't about me. If the campaign had been for our family or about me and was part of my career and success, I think it might have bothered me. But it was a total third person experience. And if you ever want people to tell you that you're decent looking, have someone tell you that you're not. Because in every airport now, people that I don't know come up to me and say, you're really actually a very nice person. And I think, why are they saying that to me? It was really a total third person experience. And so I would tell you if it had bothered me. It really didn't. And I asked myself after, why was I able to so remove myself from some of the day-to-day? And I think I learned a lot of lessons in my own life by doing this presidential race. And I think it's because when it's not about you, I was there to help. And if it didn't work out, I go back to my day job. So keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Hi, I was just wondering what aspects of your experience here at HBS influenced you the most, and which aspects you found were the most enjoyable.
Wonderful question. One thing that really impacted me was something that's been mentioned many times today and last night, of being in a group of people that come from all over the world to come together in an environment that is a little bit more relaxed, if I can say that, than being at your day-to-day job. And exchanging ideas and being here with people who are also successful in their own right. If you're in investment banking, you think everyone's in investment banking. If you're in the arts, you probably think everyone's in the arts. But when you come to HBS, you realize that there's such an incredible diversity of ways to be successful. And that was really empowering and stimulating. But with that, at this school, and I know other schools up and down the river, there is a standard of excellence that is very unique. And you feel the responsibility after you graduate to take that with you, and it changes the world. And so that was really something that I enjoyed. Some of the more enjoyable things, I used to play tennis quite a bit when I was here. I used to run the river. I came from Wall Street, and so when I came to HBS, I really wanted to sleep a lot. So I did not run every club. You all are doing much more leadership than I probably did when I was here, but I loved the academic work, and I had fun circles of friends, and it was a great time to spend at this institution.
Sure, thank you.
Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much for coming today. My question, I guess, revolves around your career in like both politics and finance. Both of these industries are industries that don't have a lot of women and where women are viewed very critically. So I was wondering, like, with your experience within politics, like, how do you separate your public life, private life? Like, what conflicts have you had with that? And, like, what tips do you have as we go into these industries?
Yeah. Great question. I was thinking about this last night because you do feel polls sometimes on a daily basis. I was in a meeting in New York on Wednesday. My daughter had a really important school program on Thursday, and I needed to be back in Boston Thursday night. So there is a little bit of, you sort of try to hop around and hit these things. But one characteristic that's been really important for me, and Ted and I both do this, is we know in our family who's really point on what thing. I'm really point on Goldman Sachs. I'm not really point on political. So whenever there's things that are trade-offs, and we just had a big trade-off this month, I do what I need to do for our business and for the firm. So if there are two events at the same time, I go Goldman. And Ted helps and comes to things when he can, if he's out of interest and people enjoy that. And if I can do a spouse dinner in the Senate, I do that. But I really make the trade-off of that my priority has to be professionally Goldman Sachs and his the Senate. And then I'm really point on our kids. And he's able to be home about 2 days a week, day and a half a week. And when he's there, he takes over and is really hands-on with them. He's become that way since the campaign. It was a critical age for them. And when he's not there, I really keep that. So I flew across the country to go back to the half-hour program and came back. So you do things like that, but you can balance it if you know what your core responsibilities are and what's secondary. And that's really important because I don't think you can have more than, in terms of professional and family, you can't have more than probably two sort of core responsibilities. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
We're just going to take one more
Last
question.
Hi, Heidi. I'd just like to thank you so much for a fantastic speech. My question is to do with finding our mission. So you mentioned it's really important that we live life with intention, and I'm wondering if you had any advice for each of us to find this intention and purpose, and how we could adapt that to any changing circumstances, if there are any strategies that you personally used.
Sure. This question hit me kind of coming out of undergrad, so thank you for taking me back to that, because I think it's really critical. You'll find people that tell you, when you're thinking about what should your mission be and how should you spend your time, to choose something that you're really good at. Well, you know what? Sometimes things we're really good at we don't love, because we kind of take them for granted. Other people will tell you, do what you love and become good at it. And I have to tell you, I'm really in the latter camp. I think if you know what inspires you by looking at people who have gone before you that have done it, even if it's hard for you, you should go for it, because you'll always be glad that you did. And you'll learn new skills and exercise new muscles, and there's so much, maybe especially as women, that people tell us what we're good at. And you might actually be really good at what you love if you'd actually had the chance to try it. So I would try to ask deep within yourself, what do you love, and in terms of the qualities of a job, the characteristics, the mission that the job has, and do that. And in that, think about what kind of life you want to have. I have a lot of energy, and I tend to push myself very hard. But I've learned that I like having a little bit of time to myself, and I like having the time to feel good. And so being in a business where I'm not a surgeon, I'm not staying up all night, I can do both a little bit, and that's been important to me. So you have to be honest with yourself as to what kind of lifestyle is going to make you happy. So
Thank you so much.
Helps. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I hope it was